Martin North. John Adams, in the interest of the people. Hello, John.
Hello, sir.
An emergency post.
An emergency post. We have seen some new big claims being made about property prices, and given the new information that we reported on our last show in the last 24 hours, I thought it was important that we come back to the viewers and talk about what's happened today in the market, which is quite significant because no doubt these new claims are going to lead to people making certain financial decisions which may or may not be based on accurate information.
Sure. Well, the old trajectory of home prices, according to CoreLogic, just keeps rising ever more through the roof.
Exactly. So just to go back to our show that we posted yesterday, which was based on numbers from the weekend. So at that point, CoreLogic was saying that Sydney property prices grew by 6.03% for the quarter, and Melbourne grew by 5.91% for the quarter. And what we showed in our last show was that REA officially now says for the quarter, Sydney went up 0.8, whereas obviously we said that 6 weeks ago they said it was still falling. Well, this hedonic price index that CoreLogic has on their website, so that anyone can look it up on the website, the daily indexes, they've come out with a very outrageous claim today. And the claim is that in one day alone, which is today, the Tuesday, that property prices in Sydney went up across the board. So this is not just houses, this is houses and units, by 0.23% in one day. So because of this massive move in property prices today, they're now saying that for the quarter, property prices are up 6.26%, and year on year is now positive 0.14%.
So just to be clear, that's Sydney. So now We're back in positive territory over the year in Sydney for the first time.
Yes. Yep. So but our last show, we said that it was 6.03 versus 0.8. Now it's in one day, it's now 6.26 versus 0.8. So the claim is even larger today compared to yesterday. And I'm not sure what's happened in 24 hours that has shot up the entire Sydney housing market. Again, houses and units by 0.23% in a day. And just to round off in terms of Melbourne, because Melbourne is also a significant claim, they're saying that today Melbourne property prices went up 0.14% for the day, which means that they've gone up 6.08% for the quarter, and now they are 0.65% positive year on year. So again, these are very big claims made by CoreLogic. And again, what we said in the last show, the REA, realestate.com.au, they have the most richest sources of information directly from agents. They are saying that they just don't see these numbers. And again, I'm sort of scratching my head as to how did the market move so rapidly within 24 hours, Martin? I mean, maybe you have an explanation.
Well, what is true about this hedonic index is it does oscillate a little bit. So you'll sometimes see it sort of not do and then move much and then move up a bit and sometimes move back a bit. So there are variations in the index. It's not totally clear to me on what drives that variation because, of course, it's all in a black box, really. But nevertheless, the net effect of all of this is to drive the home price index significantly higher. And as you say, it does seem really weird that it's so high as it is now.
Yes. Now, so we saw a couple of interesting things that we should sort of talk about this. Now, the Commonwealth Bank today put out some reporting to say that buyers' intentions now are near peak levels. So basically, when the market was red hot in 2017 and everyone wanted to get in the property market, CBA is now saying their data is saying that everyone is red hot now. And that everyone wants to jump in. Now, I'm not sure I necessarily accept that premise about buying intentions, but even if you did say that everyone wants to jump into property to the same extent that they did 2 years ago, and again, there's good evidence to suggest that it's not. And when you look at wages, when you look at savings, when you look at mortgage stress, all of these factors that your data set talks about, things are far worse for households today than they were in 2017. But Commonwealth Bank says today, people are as enthusiastic as 2 years ago that they want to buy. So, but even if you accept that people are that enthusiastic, just because you're eager to do something doesn't mean you've done it. And I would argue that the credit flows in terms of mortgage lending, we haven't seen that requisite strength required that would mean that all of this intention, if it's real, that would lead to a massive amount of property sales and prices to go up to the extent that they have.
Yeah, well, the CBA thing is a bit of a new innovation, I think, the way they're now doing it. So that's the first thing to say. The second thing is to say my own surveys on household intentions and, intention to transact over the next 12 months has come up a little, but it's certainly not anything like where it was back in 2017. And investors in particular are still not wanting to commit at the moment. So certainly my data would be conflicting with the CBA data.
Yes. Now, the other thing I should just notice is that because you said that the CoreLogic index, it does vary from day to day. It can go up and it can go down. But the reason why today's increase up is significant is because Tim Lawless, the head of research at CoreLogic, issued a tweet, and he basically made it sort of official. So let's put the tweet up on the screen. Quote, cause for celebration or commiseration. According to CoreLogic's daily index, Sydney housing values moved back into positive annual growth today, following Melbourne, where the annual change turned positive early in the month, but still down 8.8% and 4.7% from the 2007 peak. So, the head of research is basically saying, that he's basically claiming these numbers. So this is not a mistake. These are not just, a daily variation that's going to going down. He's basically saying that these numbers are up, and they're standing by these numbers, which I find again extraordinary because I think it's incumbent on CoreLogic to explain, well, how have they calculated these numbers, given when a rival group is saying the numbers are nowhere near their numbers.
And there is some information on their site as to how the hedonic index works, but it is rather partial and it's rather light on in terms of where those information feeds come from. So it's not completely clear to me as to precisely how they get to the numbers they get to.
Yes. Now, one point to make is, so again, why is this important? And we were talking about this in our show in October. The reason why this is important is that because the entire society, is basing their view on the market based on these numbers. So again, the ABS, the RBA, the government, the Treasury, in terms of the banks, in terms of real estate agents, everyone quotes CoreLogic, including the mainstream media. And if they're wrong with these numbers, a false narrative, again, what you spoke with Joseph Walker, and a false perception is being perpetuated throughout the market. And the question is, well, if people are making financial decisions now, is it on good information or bad information?
Well, certainly I know that people are being influenced by these numbers. I'm seeing it in some of the email correspondence that I'm getting at the moment from people who basically say, prices are taking off, I need to do something quick because otherwise I could miss out. So fear of missing out is now really a very strong element. But if it's supported on a set of numbers that are a bit shaky, then that's a big deal.
Yes, and I got a tweet today from someone who suggested that real estate agents across the Sydney market, in order to lock people into certain transactions, are quoting these numbers and saying the market is booming, it's rocketing back. If you don't get in now, you're going to miss out, and it's now becoming a reinforcing mantra, a narrative. Again, what we called before integrated propaganda. It's all being pushed out there. And the other thing I should say is that now we're starting to see economic forecasters now really get behind these CoreLogic numbers and revalue their forecast. So last week we saw SQM Research. So today HSBC has released their new property price forecast for 2020. They're saying that the nationwide property prices will rise between 5 to 9% for 2020, and that Sydney will go up between 8 to 12%, and Melbourne will go up 10 to 14%. So again, because again, this new forecast was reported by the Australian and by Bloomberg. So it's like CoreLogic says X, then the media reports this, then the real estate agent says C, or these credible media organisations are saying these numbers, and this is how the innocent property investor or potential home buyer is listening to all of these various sources who are supposed to be independent. They're all saying the same thing based on a set of numbers which are highly questionable in my view.
Well, certainly single source is always worry, right? So if you're a journalist, what you should be doing is pulling multiple sources together and weighing them up and coming to a conclusion. But I haven't seen anybody refer to the REA series at all. Everybody just grabs onto the CoreLogic series and runs with it.
Yes, and the question has to be asked, Martin, is why is it just you and I, of anyone in the country, talking about this big controversy around property prices? So, with the last couple of shows that we've done, I mean, I have sent these shows to a number of journalists who I know. I have spoken to some journalists on the phone about this. And yet we have seen no reporting about this controversy, and there's no objective questioning by the mainstream media. Is CoreLogic right? Is CoreLogic wrong? And to his credit, and I'll give him credit on this point, the only person who has touched this subject other than us is Peter Switzer.
Yep.
And with his Thursday property show, he has at least interviewed REA, he's interviewed CoreLogic, he's interviewed other people in the market and said there's a controversy in the data. What's your view? So Peter Switzer is the only person to at least continue this debate. But in terms of TV, in terms of radio, in terms of, again, the ABC collects no advertising revenue. There's no commercial reason for why the ABC shouldn't touch this question. And yet I've seen no reporting by the ABC as to, are these claims correct or are they false?
Well, the ABC does touch a little bit on the debt issue.
Yes.
But not on the index. They just religiously report it.
Precisely. So to the title of the show, because these are what I view to be outrageous claims that CoreLogic are unwilling to justify in terms of being precise about how they've calculated these numbers, I thought it was imperative for us to issue our own public safety announcement about this, and basically to say to people, if you're thinking about getting into the property market, it's important that you do proper research. And obviously you have to weigh the pros and cons of buying and selling given your financial circumstances. If you hear that the market is booming, and now's the time to get in, otherwise you're going to miss out, you just have to question, where is all these stories coming from? And if it's all CoreLogic, you need to question whether this is legitimate or not. If there's another source of data that's suggesting this, you have to think about, are you being fed the right information or the wrong information? Because if you're being fed the wrong information and you make a big decision about signing a big mortgage, and there's all sorts of bad news in this country, but also around the world in terms of what the real state of the economy is. You could lock yourself into a big debt commitment that could result in significant financial or social costs down the track if you've made the wrong decision now.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. People should look locally, get information locally. Don't just take a generic average across the whole of the market as gospel truth, right? Get multiple triangulation points on the information, because it's quite clear to me that the reality is way more complex than these indices would actually suggest.
Indeed. And the last thing I would say, and we sort of touched on this point during this conversation, is, because everyone relies on CoreLogic, and CoreLogic themselves say they are the market leader. You said that there's a black box around how they calculate these numbers. My view is that we shouldn't accept these numbers unless if CoreLogic can explain in detail how these numbers are calculated and prove to us that the market is booming to the extent that it is. So if CoreLogic is unwilling to put their cards on the table, and I know multiple people who have emailed CoreLogic to ask them in detail, explain this aspect or that aspect, and they're not unwilling, because they say that we're a private company, we're a private firm, this is our IP. If that's their position, then again, I don't think we should be necessarily relying on these numbers. And again, when it comes to the government, the RBA, the ABS, the Treasury, etc., the bureaucrats should be questioning as to whether they're basing public policy on the right set of numbers or whether they've taken a misguided view. Because on multiple occasions last year, as well as throughout this year, we've heard a series of statements from senior RBA officials where they've said, we misunderstood the economy, we misunderstood the market, we had certain assumptions that we made, and those assumptions have proven to be false. So there's a lot of bureaucrats who are getting their assessments wrong, and I'm very concerned that decision makers now may make the wrong decisions with fiscal and monetary policy and prudential policy with APRA because they are being fed a misguided perception of the market.
Yeah, it's certainly important that people ask hard questions and delve and dig and just don't take everything at face value. It's really important, I think, because the future of the economy and Australians actually depend on it.
Absolutely.
John, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Martin North, John Adams, in the interest of the people. We'll see you next time.